Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 8 already of Art My Medicine. Unusual for me on Friday night, but what we not do for people we want to talk to, don't we? So I'm having a guest today who is very special to me, as we cooperate and collaborate on many levels. And we are passionate about similar things. So today, my guest is Sarah Hollebon, and I will allow you, Sarah, to tell you a bit of a story to our audience.
Thank you, Dorota. I'm really happy to be here. So just thank you so much for inviting me on, first of all. So my name's Sarah Hollibon. I am a fashion designer with a background of bespoke tailoring. I'm also a mental health activist, and I also work part-time for Mine, the charity, and I'm also a public speaker. So fashion and creativity has always been a really big thing for me. And that's one of the reasons why me and Dorota connected so well, is because of her art. She expresses her art through, like, with mental health. She uses that as a way to express and talk about mental health, and I do the same with my fashion, with my garments, basically. So my business that I run in Carnaby, London, is all about raising awareness of social issues through fashion. I pick specific topics, specific social issues, and then raise awareness of that through a collection. So I'm currently focusing on mental ill health, trauma, and sexual violence. And so that business has been going for just over 2 years now. And one of the reasons why I decided to go down that route is because I've struggled with my own mental health for a very long time. And growing up, it was very hard. Like, I was very confused as a teenager and a young person with my mental health. And that I did have some support growing up, but then there was lacking support in other areas of my life. So it was very up and down, like any teenager, I think, as well. But yeah, growing up, I was very fortunate to have a few people along the way that really helped me with my mental ill health. And because of that, I've always wanted to give back in some way. And so when I was at university at London College of Fashion, I was in my final year and I was creating my final collection. And that's where I decided to talk about mental health through my garments. And that was really powerful for me because I've always used fashion and textiles as a way to express how I'm feeling. And I always also use it as a release mechanism too. So as a teenager going through my mental ill health, I latched onto unhealthy coping mechanisms, basically. And once I discovered textiles and fashion, that was a real groundbreaking moment for me, because it was a healthy coping mechanism for my mental ill health. And so I just I just proper, like, immersed myself into it. So when I was in my final year at university, I picked mental health as the concept, and I picked that because of my mental ill health struggles that I'd faced, and I've always wanted to give back in some way. And that was my way of thinking that I could give back, by raising awareness, basically. And I've also been really passionate about it as well, because my intimate family, my family circle, quite a few of those people as well who are very close to me have also struggled with their mental ill health too. So growing up, I witnessed stigma and shame that happened a lot, and it always used to make me very upset and angry. So that was another way of being very passionate to just raise awareness, basically. And I remember when I was in my final year working on the garments, I was creating this open dialogue with my tutors and my classmates naturally about mental health. And I just thought that was really, really powerful. And then that's when I realized that, this can really go further. So when I graduated, I looked into exhibiting my work through organizations that were with other artists, raising awareness of mental health. So I got into quite a few exhibitions, and they've all been incredible experiences. And then a year after that, I then decided to start my own business because I was very fortunate to win an award through London College of Fashion, where I got a studio space in Carnaby to start my own business. So
Wow.
it's really been a quite natural, organic process, really, just because I love fashion. It's what feeds my soul. And when I realized I could combine the two with raising awareness of mental health and social issues, it's just been a massive light bulb moment for me, really. And I love it.
It's amazing. However, fashion, it's not very common medium people use for, expressing social issues as, ill mental health. How your thinking process led you to how to do it? Because it's not an easy aspect, is it?
It's not. And when you look at my garments, they don't necessarily, it's not obvious that it's about mental health. And I think that's a good thing, to be honest, because then you can then learn about the concept and then become educated. Whereas if you look at something and it might be perceived as, it could come across as a negative and insensitive way, which has happened sometimes in fashion and other mediums as well, just by what we perceive to be looking at, so it is quite hard. I've always been very interested in conceptual art, the concepts behind things, that story, that connection, that emotional contact with, a piece, when you see something and you really connect to it, it brings up so many amazing emotions for you. And that really happens with anyone that connects to something, even if they're not that interested in art. So yeah, I don't know, it's quite hard. So I've just always been really interested in that, really. And I with my process, I go through interviews. I interview people who've gone through these experiences to gain a deeper knowledge and understanding to back up my research when I'm creating these garments, as well as highlighting some of my issues that I've gone through too. And I use their stories as, the building blocks for the designs. So that's kind of the process that I go through to then create the final designs. It's really hard for me to talk about it unless I've got something with me, and I don't, unfortunately. I'm so sorry.
That's fine, don't worry. I'm sure that whoever is watching or will be watching the replay can refer to your website. There is plenty of information about your collections. And yeah, you touched the aspect very close to my heart, because you talk about the outcome, the artistic end product, yeah, whatever it is. It's garment in your case. In my case, it might be a painting. Mm-hmm. And the aspect that every end product has a story behind it. It very rarely just represents, beautiful, leaf from the tree, right? There is usually a story why that leaf got painted or got embedded in the garment. And I am known in my short artistic career from the aspect that I annoy galleries. Because not only I request that my end products, the paintings, will be displayed, but also the story behind each of them. And I received amazing feedback from people saying that it's great because it provides another level of insight, because we as receivers, we look at something, we like it, we don't like it, we are interested, intrigued, whatever it is, but it's always our perspective of this, what we see.
Yeah.
While when you look into the story of the artist, you may gain completely different angle to the story, right? And I don't understand why galleries don't do that. Why, when you go to gallery mostly that has a historic kind of art and craft, that you only see, oils, 1967, landscape from I don't know, Spain, and it's like, Yeah, I get it, but I would like to know what the artist felt, what emotions were, in action. So it's amazing that you have the same urge to tell a story, and how your stories are received by the audience.
First of all, I completely agree. Like, it's the most frustrating thing for me personally when I go into a gallery and there's no concept, like, there's no explanation of what the concept was about, because there's always a reason why someone made it, even if it's just because they wanted to make it. Like, they just felt like they just wanted to make something pretty. But there's always something behind the reason, because that's kind of what artists are about. So it really frustrates me when I go in and I don't see anything, or I just see like the medium, and I'm like, well, I know that the medium. I don't know. Yeah, really frustrates me. So, oh, sorry, your question was.
What is the feedback about your stories behind your garments from the audiences that view them?
It's all been very positive. It's all been very positive. I think it's been a mixture of people who understand it already, and then there's a mixture of people that might not necessarily understand it fully, or we all don't know everything. There's always something to learn. So, if someone doesn't maybe understand one of the mental health conditions, that's totally fine. I picked some of them specifically so I can learn more about them, and the taboos and stigmas and misconceptions that are attached to it. So, it's always been very well received. It's been a mixture of people that connect to it very deeply because maybe they've gone through something similar. Even though all of our experiences are unique, there are still certain things that will connect it to that mental health condition, for example. And then, there are people that just want to talk about mental health. So it's a really great way of opening up the conversation by looking at the garment and then having that conversation with me. I mean, whenever I've done an exhibition before the pandemic, I always made an effort to be in the gallery, even if it wasn't every day, but most of the time it was normally just exhibiting for like 1 or 2 days. And I always made the effort to be there, because when you're looking at my garments, it's not always quite obvious that it's about that. So I really wanted to be there to talk about it. So I've just had so many great and interesting conversations with people who are passionate about mental health. So yeah, it fortunately it's all been very well received. I think it's good as well because I've also had conversations with people who I've interviewed. So when I had my first solo exhibition in Somerset, I invited the interviewees that I had conducting the interviews with, and some of them came along privately, and I talked about the garments that I had created based on their experiences, and that was very emotional in a very good way. It was it was a very special moment, basically, and it just really helped me know that I'm going on the right path too.
It's amazing. Yes, that must be a kind of priceless reward for you to get that connection from the interview, feeling the story, building something out from the story. And mostly those stories are very often very dark and present struggle. So I think, putting it into the form of garment must be some kind of healing. Do you believe that artistic and creative approaches have healing properties?
Oh my gosh, 110%. 110%. It heals me. That's the thing. Like, I use it as my healthy coping mechanism to help me day to day. That's what I need to do to help me just deal with life. That tactile element of creating something and then thinking it up in my head and then like going through that process and then seeing the final piece that I've done. Or even just something more like minimal and simple and basic that just takes like maybe a few hours of just drawing or painting, or just doing some textiles. Like, it's so beneficial for my mental health. And art therapy is a thing, and it's becoming very popular. So I think it's got so many healing powers, and
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to how art therapy progresses.
Yeah, it's amazing. Knowing also that, it's probably art was probably one of the first form of communications before we even as human beings developed the speech, right? witness those drawings in a cave somewhere that it's dated whatever ridiculous time before our time. So there is something very magical about artistic outcomes, and it's definitely a form of communication, isn't it? We have a question from Adam for you. Growing up through the passion and love of fashion, who did you look up to as a role model?
Well, there's a couple of designers that I definitely love, and I always take inspiration from them. So one of them is Martin Margiela from the 90s. When Martin was actually in the house. I love his work. It's basically, his work is very deconstructed, so it shows all the inner workings of the garments. And there's so much craftsmanship that goes into the garments that I produce because they're bespoke and handmade. So and Margiela basically was like one of the first people to showcase that as a artistic approach, and that, I love that. And then another designer that I really love is Thierry Mugler. I take a lot of inspiration from him. Again, 90s, early 2000s collections. Yeah, I love them. But I love all designers as well. I can just really take appreciation for all the work that's gone into it, the designing, the sampling, the patterns, the fittings, the twirlings, the final garments, all the handwork, the machine work, the hand beading. Like, it's a true craft, and it's a true art form as well.
Yeah, and like you said, you many of the garments you produce are handmade, aren't they? So it is old-fashioned needle and the thread, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. So I've been trained in bespoke tailoring. So I got a degree in bespoke tailoring from London College of Fashion. But I was also being trained by Savile Row tailors. So I take a lot of the stuff that I've fortunately learned from, because they're like master tailors and they're just amazing and so talented. And I incorporate into the garments. They're very sustainable pieces. They're investment pieces that last for a very long time. The way that they're constructed, the shape and sizing can change if the person's body changes as well over the years. So it's very much, don't throw it away, come back, or like, amend it to what needs to be. And things that are made by hand do last so much more longer.
Why so? Is it the way you stitch the pieces, or why they last longer?
There's many reasons. So with hand sewing, you have far more control over the tension of the stitch. So when it's on machine, a lot of the times the tension can be quite off. And if the tension's off, the whole seam will rip quite quickly if there's pressure pulled on it. And we put pressure on garments all the time because we're moving. There's another few more reasons. You've got a lot of fast fashion. Basically, there's this one thing that when you're sewing a seam and you back tack the ends so it doesn't fall apart, you go over it, you go back.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times it's only going back by like 0.5 centimeters, whereas in bespoke tailoring it goes back by like 5 centimeters. So it really doesn't come apart. And then also another great reason for bespoke is by doing it by hand. When you're doing it by hand, you have far more control over it. Now, by doing it by hand, a lot of the garments, when we wear a garment, it's 3D, it's not 2D. When you machine it on a sewing machine, you're working on a flat surface, which is 2D. Whereas when you're doing it by hand, you have far more control over creating it into a 3D molded garment by like maybe using your hand as like a rounded bit, or like your thigh. So that's another element of how it can be so high quality. I hope that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah, it totally does. I'm just thinking. It brings me to childhood, and well, at least where I was brought up, which is Europe. We used to have those on top of art classes. We used to have. I don't know how to call it, but it was practical element, life practical element. I don't know how to translate it literally, but it was about putting a nail into the wood, stitching two pieces of textile, or I don't know, stitching the button up, whatever.
Yeah, mending a button. Not a
Yeah,
lot of people know how to do that.
Yeah, and it was it was mandatory part of curriculum. I am not aware that there is so much focus on those life skills nowadays in education system. What do you think about it?
I don't know. I mean, I can only talk about my experience because I don't really have that many people in my family that are quite young.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really have an insight into what it's like now. But you have some children, don't you? So for
Yeah.
me, I actually did have sewing lessons. I didn't have it in primary school, not that I can remember. But in secondary school, I had sewing classes and they were mandatory until year 9. And then you could pick if you wanted to do it. And I obviously did pick it. And like, I think the first one I made was an apron and then I made a pillow. And then the other one that we did was cooking as well, learning skills on how to cook things. I made a mean apple crumble. And then we did have some woodwork lessons as well. But yeah, when we hit year 10, you could pick which ones you wanted to do basically. I don't
Yeah.
know what it's like now. I don't know. Like I said, I don't have that
Yeah,
much to it.
I'm not sure how it is now. I know that they do a bit of cooking or they can pick certain, but in secondary school. I remember being as little as 7 years old and
Oh,
dealing with needle and hammers and you name it, of course under supervision, but still. Um,
that's
well,
amazing.
I can only say that it prepared me very well for being a single mother for many, many years. Okay. I could assemble any furniture you gave me in flat pack.
Amazing. That is a skill. That is a
It
skill.
is. It is. I wish our children had a bit more of this kind of mend it, don't throw it away
Yeah.
attitude and being
Mm.
taught how to do it. Because, I find it therapeutic when there is something that it's not functioning anymore. Or there is like I do, I hate wasting resources when I create. So I may have a piece of paper that has been stained because I splashed paint too much, but I never throw it away. And at some point I look at it and it's like I start to see an image, and then I create an image from the piece of paper that would probably be thrown away. And I find it very uplifting, very encouraging, and a kind of rewarding that that was rubbish, that was piece of rubbish, right? And I turned it back to functioning, to pleasing my eye or whatever. And I think that nowadays the speed of life, the availability of items everywhere in such a huge quantities, make the life that we do not appreciate so much, the things that might be nice, well, serving well, but they malfunction a little bit, so we throw it away.
I know. I totally agree with that. I think the accessibility of getting something new to replace something is so easy now that people just think that that's the better option, but really it's like, where does that thing that you've just thrown away go? It doesn't just disappear, go
Yeah.
somewhere. And a lot of times if it's plastic, it can't be recycled, so then it gets stuck somewhere. And I recently saw these appalling images of like mountains and mountains and mountains of plastic clothing, because most garments nowadays on the high street are made out of plastic basically. And I saw piles and piles and piles of images of these garments stuck in a desert in like South America, because they couldn't go through the border control because of the plastic. They didn't want them, they couldn't put them in the landfill, so they just ditched them in the desert. It's really disturbing. So I think that whole men do attitude really needs to come back. And you're right, like I think ingraining it early on is just so important, because it's so, people at that age, you soak up so much information like a sponge. So to have that ingrained
So it becomes a habit, isn't it?
yeah, exactly, yeah, it becomes habitual. Like it's so important. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
definitely.
a lot of the times it's quite minimal things that need to be fixed, and it is so easily done to fix it if you know how to do it. If you don't know how to
Exactly.
do it, then how do you know how to
Yeah.
do it?
Yeah, I know many adults who don't know how to sew the button back when it, or how to trim, trousers and make them a bit shorter with easy stitch, you know.
Yeah,
There
the
is
thing is, it's just it's a very simple thing, those two things. So like everyone can learn it.
yeah. And yeah, it is therapeutic. I find myself that even when I'm stitching, you know, something, because I have 3 children, and my middle child was very, very talented in ripping his trousers and all possible clothing. And as a single mom on very low income, then I had to mend things. But it was, like I said, it is giving some reward that you fixed something that was broken.
Yeah.
And why it came to my mind is because we have this attitude towards ill mental health, that people are broken. And very often, you know, society push them away in one sense or the other, while it's just a bit of mending that is needed for those people to function, right? So I know that you have another project that you are passionate, you said at the beginning. So tell us a bit what the coordinator of Time to Change Hub does.
Yeah, so I'm the Time to Change Kingston coordinator, part-time, 1.5 days a week, and that's with Mind in Kingston. So Time to Change is a social movement, and it's all about tackling mental health stigma and discrimination. And people tackle that by using their lived experience to begin a conversation with people who might have stigmatizing views. And yeah, so we create events and campaigns, creative, very, very creative work within Kingston, to start the conversation basically, and using our lived experience. I started as a volunteer for them January 2020. No, it's January 2020. And I was a volunteer with them, and volunteers are called champions. I was with them for a year and a half, and then I was fortunate to get the coordinating role, and it's just been fantastic. You know, Time to Change was really the first platform that gave me the confidence to start talking about my mental health openly, and they offered that to me in a very safe way, you know, on my terms. You know, they give you training on how to talk about it safely, because it's a very sensitive subject, especially if it's coming from your own experience. You know, you need to be safe in terms of what you talk about, how you talk about it, you know, have lots of things in place to help you. So, you know, by attending events and talking to people, talking to the public and stuff, it's just been amazing. And yeah, you know, with Time to Change Kingston, we have so many activities that go on in so many different ways to talk about mental health stigma and discrimination. You know, me and Dorota have done some live in conversations on Zoom. We've got some physical events coming up, and it's really just, you know, talking about it, just talking about mental ill health, you know, really just opening that dialogue can really begin helping people, knowing that they're not alone, changing people's stigmatizing views. And you know, if you've got a stigmatizing view, like, that's not a bad thing. Like, sometimes we've been conditioned growing up to believe things like that.
True.
You know, like, you can't be expected to know everything. So, you know, also being kind and just being aware that, like, you know, this is what it really is about, you know, and it's, you know, you're not a bad person for thinking that it wasn't that. But you know, as long as you're moving forward and learning from it, that's the main thing, really, isn't it? With anything in life.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, although I am not a Kingston resident, I still collaborate with Kingston Hub. And I know that there is some gathering planned. We will see how the COVID restrictions are going to change our plans. But if anybody is interested to become a champion, champions will be meeting in Kingston on, remind me, 18th, isn't it?
Yeah. 12 p.m.
Yes, so on social media there is an advertisement about it, and everybody is really welcome.
And then also, if anyone's interested in becoming a volunteer for Time to Change Kingston, then email me and we can set that up.
Yes, I have put that email in the description under the Facebook and YouTube video. So all the details are there. There is a comment from Elizabeth saying that she can hear the passion in your voice. She commented when you were talking about fashion. And when we were talking about those classes, she confirmed that many countries removed those classes from their curriculum, which is so sad.
It's really sad.
And when we are on the subject of education, I have certain views about how we should teach children. Well, we shouldn't teach children art, first of all. We can, of course. We should let them know who the famous people were and how the outcomes look like. But there should be another subject that I would title creativity. Because how your art classes looked in school, like what you were asked to do and perform.
Me, personally?
Yeah, when you were in school.
So when I was in secondary school, I hated art. I hated it so much. It's just crazy because I love it. But the way that I was taught with certain things, I was like, I'm not good enough. I'm not good at this. And my teachers knew I wasn't good. I also didn't have a great relationship with them either. But yeah, I really disliked it because I remember we were expected to create these very perfect, beautiful images of like the countryside, which are great images, like oil paintings and stuff. They're really, really beautiful, but they were always needing to be in the perfect form, using the right scale. And I'm just not good at that. I much prefer abstract work. I didn't really know about abstract work at the time because that's not what I was being learned. I was learning the traditional methods, the traditional types of portraiture, basically. And I just really wasn't good at it, and it really frustrated me. So I ended up just really disliking it. And I remember when I was in my last year in secondary school, I did choose art as one of my pathways, and I was really intrigued with like surrealism, and I created this really like cool like weird eye sculpture thing, and my teacher hated it. She was a very traditional painter basically, so she really didn't like my stuff. But I'm glad that when I went to college, I was then opened up to textiles and fashion at Bridgewater College was so creative basically. Like there was so many creative elements. It wasn't just fashion. And my teachers were just so enthusiastic as well, and my passion just really came through from that, really.
Amazing. And this proves another point that passionate teacher or tutor is a key element in letting children to find their way, don't they?
Exactly. Yeah. It's a big thing.
So this, what you said, really confirms this, what I heard and experienced myself in a different educational system, but still, that art is, presenting children with a perfect masterpiece that is somewhere in the world, in the museum, worth millions, right? And asking them, paint it or be inspired by it. Okay, without knowing much of the story behind it, without knowing that you can't really be another Van Gogh. You will have your own voice to portray things. You can't expect me to do the painting like Van Gogh, right? And stuff like that. And like you said, building this fear that it needs to be perfect, because what if I do something inspired by such a beautiful art and it's crap, right? It's kind of like not giving enough respect to it. So it can build serious fear and anxiety. While, it's all right to teach children about art and artists and their masterpieces, but we should teach them being creative. We should teach them how to use art, whatever medium, to release stress, to get something going when you really feel like not doing anything, to get beauty around the houses, because without it, our mood is affected. Those kind of things should be taught. Yes, play with paints, just play with them, create nothing, but play with them. Just, put your hands into it and experience this sensory experience. Do you find yourself still playing as an artist with different mediums?
I totally agree with what you were just saying, by the way. I do, yes. I do, but I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes it can be quite easy to stick with what with certain mediums that I already know. So it's very much going out of my comfort zone to like make that conscious effort to play with different mediums. But I'm gonna let you into a secret. I'm not very good at drawing, so sometimes I do try and just play around and like get better at it. Use like different mediums, like different pens and inks and stuff like that. So yeah, I do like to do that because I feel like with garments you can really work with any medium. Like Alexander McQueen is a great example of that. He created so many garments with so many different things, like sometimes like shells from the beach,
Wow.
yeah, like creating a fantastic couture dress from that. So I feel like it is, the possibilities are endless with working with mediums, with creativity. So it's something that I really try and make a conscious effort to experiment with, because I want to, because sometimes it's just super fun, just working with something new, just not even taking it super seriously, just start. That's sometimes one of the hardest things for me though, is to just start, because I procrastinate, because I want it to be like perfect straight away, and most times not perfect straight away, and also like imperfections are beautiful. So
Exactly. And as you were saying, something popped into my mind and then flew away.
make it come back.
Yeah, it will definitely come back. We have some love hearts from Elizabeth. Oh yes, I know what I wanted to say, because we are talking about fashion and you advocating for mental health. However, we know that there is also a topic that is very sensitive, fashion and mental health, but like being in this constant battle, because fashion industry requires so much dedication, so much sacrifice that it may make you ill. So I'm referring here to models, having very often eating disorders and whatsoever. Did you touch that part of fashion at any point?
I did actually, yeah. So I did a series of talks. I'm trying to think, yeah, earlier this year. And I did that as a Time to Change Kingston champion. So I got funding from Time to Change Kingston to create a virtual fashion exhibition, and then I also hosted a series of talks throughout that period, and I had various different people from the fashion industry come on, and we spoke about mental health basically. So, and all of these people brought on their own experiences and their own life journeys, and some of the things that were touched on were, for example, intense hours that are expected to be worked in the fashion industry for no pay. So that creates extreme distress and anxiety. And then also, the pressures that designers feel to always be creating the new best thing. And then also some of the things around body image definitely came up as well. Like some modeling agencies would be always weighing the person's weight, and they always had to stay within the same weight every week, and that definitely plays a part on your mental health. So there is a very dark side to the fashion industry.
Yeah, which is very sad.
It is.
We have a comment from Graham saying that he loved screen printing at college and wanted to learn more when left school, but had to get a proper job. And don't we know all that? Yeah, how our dreams and passions can be killed by the mundane responsibility of surviving. But Graham, it's not too late. It's not too late at all. You can still learn a lot, and find that passion back and bring it back to your life.
Yeah, I know loads of people that do it in their spare time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that it's very important to find, because, let's step back a bit. I am also asked very often how I do it all, because I have full-time job, I have 3 children, I have a puppy, a cat, a zoo at home, and whatsoever. still create and create like crazy. Okay, I don't sleep enough, I admit. I am sleep deprived, but my condition makes me to have trouble sleeping. But what I'm saying, that I could easily say that I don't have time for doing my art. But since I tapped into my creativity after a massive mental health breakdown, I never stopped, and I do it daily because I really treat it as my medicine, as this allows me to, first of all, quiet my mind that is chatting constantly and in two languages, and it's really annoying. And do something that relaxes me, that gives me a bit of joy. And finding passion like that, like Graham said, maybe screen printing or maybe something else, may provide you with a tool to mend yourself, to mend your mental health, because we said about it that it's, ill mental health makes us a bit broken, but not useless. We can mend ourselves. So passion, I find, as very important. And whoever I speak, and you know yourself that I invite people who have this connotation, creativity and mental health, and they do it not only to help others, but also to help themselves and heal. So passion is extremely important. And we have comment from Elizabeth. Stitching the mind fashion is also used to express the mind. I feel this is a way of understanding the designers as well. Do you find you can express through your designs for your own mental health?
Definitely. I think I'm understanding the question. Yeah, so when I create my garments, I interview people who've gone through these experiences, but I also touch on my own experiences as well. So, it's been a very therapeutic process for me, because I am beginning, it helps me, what's the word? It helps me, reflect on what my experience, my endurances have been with my mental ill health. And it just helps me like manifest it in a healthy way. So my own experiences do play a big part in the collections, as well as the people that I interview. And the first two topics that I've picked at the moment are one of the ones that I have my own experiences with. So that's a big thing, to draw on from my own experiences. It's a very therapeutic process for me. I also find it a very therapeutic process with public speaking, to talk about my mental ill health, with the hope that I'm helping at least one person in the audience by talking openly about my struggles with with post-traumatic stress disorder and self-harming and stuff that I've gone through.
Yeah, opening up about it is like, I find it, at least, that you give this trauma a voice, and then it stops annoying you, in your mind. It's I don't know if it makes sense, but it's like, you need to let it out.
Yes.
Yeah,
definitely. You're letting it out. It's a healing process for you.
It is so tell me a bit more. I know that you also had some amazing collaborations in the past, and you also created some hand-painted garments, didn't you? You had an artist who painted on your garments or something like that?
Yes. Daniela Reitchev. Yeah. So me and her, she's a multidisciplinary artist, and we collaborated together. I'm trying to think when it was. Time is like rushing by me so quick. I think it was earlier No, it was last year. Sorry, I'm getting so confused with the pandemic. It's just going on for so long, because it was in between like lockdowns and stuff we met. Anyway, we basically came together. We got introduced by this great person called T from Never Fade, and me and Daniela go through similar processes with the interview stages. So for her, she also interviews people and then uses their experiences to reflect the paintings that she creates. So she's touched on a lot of work around sexual abuse, trauma, eating disorders. And so when we came together, we both are very passionate about raising awareness of traumas that come out from being raped, sexually assaulted, around the whole umbrella of sexual violence, basically. So we really wanted to create a garment that raised awareness of sexual violence. And this garment has many conceptual sections to it to raise awareness of sexual violence. And one of the main base parts of the garment is hand painting done by Daniela, and that is one of the paintings that she's taken from when she did the interviews of people who have gone through sexual abuse. It's very, very powerful garment.
Amazing. Is there somewhere that the audience could see that garment?
Yeah, so it's all on my Instagram, and it's also on my website as well, just as one image. I'm updating it at the moment. Basically, I'm updating the sexual violence section, so all of the images will be on there soon. It did get featured. I took part in a photo shoot recently with some fantastic models and photographer, where they shot the garment, they photographed the garment, and it's been featured on Mindless Mag online, and you can see all of the images there. But I'm basically in the process of updating it on my website. I build my website myself, so it's a bit of a slow burner, but yeah, I've got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, perhaps you can paste the link under the YouTube
Yes.
recording of our show, and then people will find it, because I know I have seen it and I loved it, and I loved the idea. Very good comments from Elizabeth saying that your story is very empowering, and she congratulates you on your achievements, because it is achievement. You are still a very young woman, and you already achieved so much. The collections, the business, and healing process. It's a lot. So. It's a lot that you went through, but it brought that positive change. Your art, definitely. And it's funny that when I not yet met you but heard about you via a mutual friend, I remember that I reflected on one of my artwork when I painted the body in pieces, and the stitching marks in between those pieces broken, and I titled it Recovery. And I was thinking how bizarre it is that there is something about stitching that very closely resonates with me in terms of recovery process, whatever it is, addiction, PTSD, mental health illness of whatever kind. There's always like you stitch yourself back together, and those little pieces need to be reattached. So yeah, amazing.
I actually created a garment with that process. So I did a live performance. Yeah, it was last year at Never Fade, where I had a model do a performance where she was dancing. I had 2 models, and they were wearing these garments that I created based on the mental health collection, and they had words all written over them, and basically I'd asked the public, what does mental health mean to you, and then they wrote their answers on these garments. And then when the performance came about, I actually started to cut up the skirt that the model was wearing. I cut it up, and then I painted it. I hand painted it myself, and then I stitched it back together. And that was inspired by kintsugi, which is the Japanese pottery of broken pots I've broken, and then they're mended back together with gold or silver. And it's it plays a really powerful metaphor for trauma, and the recovery process that you go through. So that's something that I created, and then I created a bag from that, basically. But yeah, my next collection on trauma is heavily inspired by kintsugi, because it is that element of, you've been shattered, your whole world has been falling apart from this trauma that happens, and then at your own pace with the right support around you, it is possible to move through it and go through recovery on a journey.
Exactly. And recovery is like that, isn't it? That you assemble those pieces together. They will never ever look like they looked before they got broken, right?
No.
But they may look even more beautiful. Yeah, and this is what art can make. What difference the art can make, because art is, this aspect of our life that we touch every day, on every minute of our day. But people still have this stereotype of artists being the kind of margin of, of society. But imagine life without watching a movie, without reading a book, without listening to the music, without wearing some clothing. You know what I mean? So art is all around us.
Exactly, and it's so important, and it's so disappointing when you see that there's not enough funding going into it because they're saying that it's not important. It's like, well, you try not having any paintings in your house and see how you feel, or you try not going, like, go a year without watching a film. It's soul destroying not being around it. You need it around you all the time. And also, I think also with art, I think it's great because, if you're not ready to begin talking about your mental ill health or your trauma or whatever you've gone through in life with a therapist, you can use it as a way, maybe with your art, as a release.
Yeah.
And then also sometimes there's waiting lists for getting help, so this is a great alternative.
Yes, exactly. Yes, art can be definitely a good release. Oh my God, I didn't notice how quickly the time passed. We are almost at the end. So I think it's the time to surprise you with my surprise. I do that for every guest of mine. I create a painting in them, in my mind. With them in my mind, and I believe that that creative process, when I think about someone, when I create, transfer some energy towards them. I never know what I will get because I never have any direction when I approach the piece of paper. I just think about that person, and I created one for you.
Oh my gosh! Wow!
Would you like to see it? Okay. So, this is upside down. So this is the image I have created. It came very, very by surprise. I did not plan. It's just that half of the woman emerged holding some kind of textile, I think. And yes, I will send you a digital copy for you to see it better, because obviously, it's not as well visible as it could be. And I always offer my guests that they can purchase that particular original painting, and 20% of sales will go to Mental Health Warriors, because Mental Health Warriors is the initiative that is based mainly on donations. And this is my way of giving back to wonderful projects. And
I'm speechless.
prints are also available. So if anybody fell in love, could contact me, and I will offer print as well. So yeah, it's very spooky, and it spooks me each time because, like I said, she even have very wavy hair, long hair like you. It's so spooky.
Yeah. I love it, Dorota. I'm really speechless. Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I believe that when you create those garments with the story that you heard from your interviewees in your mind, I believe that you transfer special energy into those garments, because I know what happens to me and how spooky it may be. And I believe that every artist, every creative soul has that energy to transfer to others.
I totally agree. It's a very powerful thing, energy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Well, it was so lovely talking to you. I'm sure that we will be talking about many things in the future, because we do have many wonderful plans and projects running. And we are hoping that we will see your exhibition in February at some point, if everything goes to plan. We will make sure. March as well, yes, but February for Time to Talk Day. Let's hope that our project,
yes.
that our project works. This what I would like to say. Just don't stop, Sarah. You are doing amazing and very unique work. because, like I said, you know, advocating for fashion. Wow. And
Thank you so much. Thank you.
you are so welcome. And the comment, beautiful show. Where can we find you both? You can find us on social media. I will let you, Sarah, say first where people can find you.
So on social media it's my name, so Sarah with a H, and then Hollibon, HOLLEBON. That's HOLLEBON. And then I'm also on Google as well, so you can type my name in and my website will come up, which is again www.sarahhollibon.co.uk, and all my work is there basically. Dorota, are you okay?
Yeah. Just had a coughing fit.
Oh no, do you have water?
Yeah. Just had some. Well, you can find us.
Did you
on
want to
social
say your
media.
social media too?
Yes, he says my name dot surname dot art. I will put it under the recording. I'm very sorry. It's just I choked on something. Thank you very much for everyone who watched, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much.
And I need to find the ending